One of those MMA fighters who's always in contention as the greatest of all-time fighter, Anderson Silva, discussed that Conor McGregor's, quote, flaws are clear, end quote. Now, tantalizing headline.
Tantalizing indeed.
Some might say it's even possibly scathing towards McGregor. Let's get into the full context of exactly what Anderson Silva had to say via Guilherme Cruz of MMA Fighting. He has flaws. We all have flaws, and his flaws are clear. He defends well, but he doesn't have jiu-jitsu. The main thing is that he uses his movement and his opponent's movement in his advantage. He never puts himself in uncomfortable positions. Everyone who fought him put themselves in uncomfortable positions and weren't able to get back to comfortable positions again. And he finishes with, and I believe this is being translated from Silva's OG language. I think everybody has a chance. When you step inside the ring to fight, you have a chance. Of course, that if you're fighting Mayweather, people would say, oh, McGregor won't last around, but we never know. I think Anderson Silva is correct in a couple of these points, friends. I'm curious what you think as well. I do think everybody has flaws. I don't think anybody's a perfect fighter, hence why, except I guess Mayweather, who's never lost, hence why most professional MMA greats still have a 1 or a 2 in the loss column.
I think that everyone has flaws. Conor McGregor's flaws have been displayed to the world. It's not secret. Like, if he was unbeaten and he came out and said this, then more people would probably argue back. We're like, all right, well, maybe I haven't seen his flaws because he's unbeaten as well, but what makes an athlete great is understanding of flaws and strengthening them so that they're not used to, obviously, as your main weakness. Nate Diaz exploited that Conor McGregor was unable to adjust weight and maintain the same level of, I would say, cardiovascular endurance. Let's say that. That makes sense. Because cardiovascular endurance just means he wasn't able to keep up that level of physical endurance throughout in the way that he was before.
Cardiovascular endurance means your heart's endurance in a fight.
Yeah, cardiovascular endurance.
I think you just mean endurance.
Cardiovascular
I don't think
endurance.
you need cardiovascular ahead of it.
I think you need cardiovascular endurance
really
in everything.
Think you need cardiovascular.
In the context of this clip, we don't. I'm just trying to sound smarter. But you do need cardiovascular endurance in everything in your life, especially when you want to perform at a high level of intensity throughout. So I think McGregor's endurance was exploited in that. He fatigued a little earlier than expected. And when he took a couple of punches, he wasn't able to come back. So he worked on that. And that also highlighted other flaws where he tried to stand toe-to-toe consistently with a bigger man who had a longer reach and more power behind him. So he adjusted that as well. And that's why, as much as everyone claimed that the Nate Diaz fight, again, was in the balance, I thought it was just an exemplary example. The second one, an exemplary example of a person doing what they have to do to win a fight. It might not have been as glorious, but it was great.
I think you're alluding to the running thing. Go see a live MMA fight, please. I really believe those who say, and I can't generalize everyone into one category, but I get frustrated when I hear people say, well, that person ran the whole fight. I don't think they've ever been to a live fight. Now, I'm fortunate because we get to go to live fights, but I'm not saying, like, even if you go to any amateurish live fight, there is nowhere to run.
Yeah.
On TV, they do a very good job of actually making that ring or octagon look bigger than it actually is, because in person, you have like 5 steps before you hit a wall. And then if you step to the right, you hit a wall. And if you go forward, you hit another wall. You are boxed, caged, octagoned in. There's nowhere to move. I think McGregor, and believe it or not, maybe because it's appropriate, the New England Patriots are very similar. Beating McGregor is like beating the New England Patriots. There's actually a pretty clear game plan. Executing that game plan is extremely difficult, and very few have been able to do it. That's why they don't tend to lose. That's why they have a lot more W's than they have L's in their columns of wins and losses. I think there's a handful of fighters that can exploit Conor McGregor's flaws, but that just because you exploit the flaws, just because you put McGregor in an uncomfortable position, does not mean you just beat him. So a lot of this is coming back to the points where I think Anderson Silva makes sound points. I think Anderson Silva, again, like everybody else, is answering the questions that are being thrown to him while also trying to stay for one last little bit of time in the headlines as a fighter. He's fighting again, UFC 208, I'm pretty sure, in Brooklyn. And it's not going to be that exciting of a fight, but I would hope this is one of his last fights, and I would hope that if he could say this is his last fight, maybe we can get like a little standing ovation, roll the tape of like some of the greatest knockouts in the history of the sport. Good send-off, give it your all, and then walk away. Be a commentator, be a coach, whatever you want to do, because I'm sure there are hundreds of UFC fighters who can learn a thing or 2 or 10
From one of the greatest.
Hopefully
I think
not taking steroids.
I think that as well, this is another example of taking part of the whole phrase or whatever conversation he had out of context. Like, his flaws are clear, but when you look at it, he basically says everyone has flaws. McGregor's are clear, but so is a lot of other fighters. There's no fighter in the UFC at the moment whose flaws aren't clear, I would say. Like, despite how many of them are very good and they do what they can to hide those flaws, when you watch these fighters perform consistently, everyone has flaws that are exploited by someone else. But exactly right, Jason. It's whether you exploit those flaws whilst able to kind of maintain the ability to not have your flaws exposed by another person. It's all about exposing each other's flaws. Conor McGregor's flaws were quite literally exposed to the world by Chad Mendes. He did it for 2 straight rounds.
That's true.
His, you can't wrestle. You can't wrestle.
It's been like 2 years.
And then
he was trained.
And I was like, he can't wrestle, but you can get him to the ground. Then what do you do?
No.
Like, because he didn't do anything.
He couldn't wrestle then. He's gotten
better at it now.
Slightly better at it now. If he goes to the, if he fought the equivalent to Daniel Cormier at the lightweight division, I think that would be bad.
Yeah.
The equivalent, not Daniel Cormier. He's like 50 pounds heavier than he is. I'm saying, not actually, but I'm saying like the equivalent of that might be a bad matchup.
Yeah.
But they don't have a Daniel Cormier equivalent in the lightweight division or featherweight division. Where is he fighting nowadays?
Who?
Is he just in weight division? Just all of them?
McGregor? I think it's just up to on whether or not he decides. I think the biggest concern for Conor McGregor and who I think could exploit those flaws a little bit more so would be Khabib. Only because I think he's almost like Khabib's like a surgeon, right? Because he's so specific in the way that he goes about his actions, and he's able to obviously utilize his own technique, but he picks his moments. He's kind of patient in the octagon as well, and I think that he's not someone that's going to come in riled up as much as we've seen Jose Aldo do, as much as Eddie Alvarez playing into it. And I think that he'll rely on his technique more so. I'm not saying he'll go in and he would beat Conor McGregor, but it would be a very technical matchup. I think both of them would try to exploit each other's flaws whilst obviously highlighting what they're best at.
I very much believe that Khabib has the right mental state to fight Conor McGregor.
Because that's half the battle.
I think it's more than half the battle. I think it's 70%. In the UFC nowadays, it could be 75%. I talk to Robin Black and we talk about the mental state of being in that octagon. A lot of things change, and a lot of what you prepare for physically goes by the wayside when you're thrown a curveball and everything you train for. You get hit hard with a left hook and you go, fuck, what am I doing now? Yeah. Those are Robin's words pretty much, paraphrasing his. With Khabib, I think he's got the right mental state of being because I don't think it's gonna get under his skin, the trash talk, as much as Eddie Alvarez played into it and Aldo played into it.
He took the bait.
And I think it would be entertaining as all can be, though. I'd like to see Khabib fight McGregor more so than anything else.
So would I, and so would the world apparently, but there are some other fights that everyone wants a piece of Conor McGregor in the UFC, and Conor McGregor wants a piece of Floyd Mayweather. So let us know what you think in the comment section below. Anderson Silva's comments. What do you think? Jason Rubin91 on Twitter, Francis_Maxwell, and all other social medias in the comment section below. And we'll see you soon.